OTs are great at asking people, what do you want to do? But they're not very good at asking themselves, what's important to me? And I got so nervous. I thought, how am I, this wee OT from the country, how am I going to impress this man who I've looked up to and who the whole community had looked up to all their life?
Not going to let you away with not telling us how you broke your arm.
She's the only OT that ever treated me, but she treated me as a person, not as a wrist injury. First thing he said to me is, what's an occupational therapist? What do you do? That very first interaction gave me confidence that I, as an OT, could actually empower and really help somebody. Hello, I'm Martina Tierney. I'm the Occupational Therapist and Clinical Director here at Seating Matters. I'm delighted to sit down with Jonathan here today. He's my son, and we're going to talk about the new book that I've recently written, The Power of OT. And Jonathan just wants to talk to me about breaking my arm and how I got treated by the first OT and different things. He just wants to talk to me. So for the first time in his life, he's going to listen to what I have to say. So, Jonathan.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here and to start this podcast because this book really is a powerful book. And we've seen that over the last couple of days at the OT show in Birmingham where we launched the book. And the feedback already is amazing that OTs are just saying how much they need this. When you spoke at the OT show, there was people coming up to us after just saying like they were so disheartened that their job was, they were finding that the morale was dropping and that this book is now inspiring them. So coming back from the OT show, we thought, how do we get this message out to more people? And that's why we're sitting here.
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell us maybe to start off with, what is the book? What's it about? Why did you write it?
Well, John, you know I've been an OT all my life and you're sort of almost an OT yourself because you've listened to me talk about OT since you were born. So I'm an OT 41 years. And at the very beginning, I wouldn't have been that confident in OT or a confident person. And I didn't know the true value of OT for the first few years of my career. But once I found my passion in seating and found my passion, I really got very confident about what I was doing. And then when I did that, I really felt, well, I need to let that voice out. I need to tell other people about the value of OT because I see young OTs coming along. I see OTs in their current job not really feeling valued. And it's something I really want to change. I want OTs, students and OTs currently just to feel their value and their power.
So at Seating Matters, where I work with you every single day, our purpose is to enable caregivers to care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you said at the OT show, and one of the things you say in the book is, the caregiver can't care until they fill themselves up. Could you explain that and maybe reference that in the book?
Yeah. In the book on page, I think it's 212, there's a quote that I've put in there, deliberately put in, and the last line of the quote says, you cannot serve from an empty vessel. And well, OTs are great at asking people, what do you want to do? What's important to you? But they're not very good at asking themselves, what's important to me? What do I want to do? And if you don't have value in yourself, you can't bring value to others. If you don't value your own profession, how do you expect other people to value it? And if you don't know what you really want, you can't find other people to get what they really want. So the first, and what I left the OT show saying to them, I'm leaving you with a parting gift. And that is to go away and find out what your passion is. Because when I discovered my passion for seating, nothing would stop me getting up on the stage and speaking about it, even though I wasn't the type of person who really wanted to speak in public. So finding your passion means that you have this burning desire to tell people about it. So you really need to find that first before you can give it to others.
It's a bit like this podcast. It's something new, it's something different, something we haven't done before, but we know that the purpose of what we have, the message we have to try whatever it takes to get that message out and help the other therapists. The book is made up of two parts. The first half is your story, and then you have 18 contributors, 18 other, mostly OTs. I think there's one who isn't an OT. But so we're going to use this as a way of interviewing or meeting the other 18 people as well. But to start off with yourself, could you tell us a bit about your story? Especially I like the part in the book where you talk about your very first patient. Can you tell us that story?
So I come from a very large family in a rural part, as you know, of Northern Ireland. So I'm from a family of 13 and I'm number 12. And we lived way out in the country, and always in the newspapers that were delivered to our door every week, there was this photograph of this a very prominent surgeon from Heartfelt Hospital. His name was Mr. Brennan. It's okay to say that name now. And everybody in the community respected Mr. Brennan greatly because he did a lot of fundraising for the hospital. And you would see him in the newspaper with people like at big fundraising events, and he would be in his tux and they would be in long dresses. And as a child, like growing up, you would have been watching this in the papers and hearing people talk with admiration about this man, Mr. Brennan. So I got my first job in Heartfelt Hospital as a freshly qualified OT in the green trousers. And I went and I was given a patient list. And at that time, there was no such thing as an induction or a training or anything. You were just given the list. And I was the only OT at the time as in treating inpatients. So I went to the hospital and I looked at the list, and who was top of that list? Mr. Brennan. Well, my heart just sank and I got so nervous. I thought, how am I, this wee OT from the country, how am I going to impress this man who I've looked up to and who the whole community had looked up to all their life? So I went up the stairs of this hospital, big marble staircase, and into his private room, which was scary in the first place. He wasn't in a normal ward. He was in a private room. And he said, first thing he said to me is, what's an occupational therapist? What do you do? And I explained, he says, what did you, at university, like, what did you cover? What subjects did you cover? So I explained all the subjects I covered. And he says, and how are you going to help me? So I explained to him about I asked him first, what did he want to do? And he said he was a golfer. He wanted to golf. He had lost the function of one arm. It was his third stroke. His balance was off. And I first of all found out what he wanted to do. And then I says, well, this is how I can help you. So I brought him down to the OT department. And back in those days, there was no Google or no research or nothing. We had just the notes and the research that we had done at college. So every night I would go home and I would research. And lucky enough, I had done a placement in stroke rehabilitation. So I was able to go back to those notes. And every night I had a plan of action for the next day of what I was going to get him to do. And he came down to the OT department every day and he loved it. He loved the fact that it was meaningful. You know, that I was getting him to do balance activities, but I was getting him to improve his swing for his golf, that I was improving his upper limb function by getting to do like sanding on a sanding board. So everything he was doing was meaningful. And that was his life because he was a surgeon and he was a sort of man that needed to have a result at the end of it. And I ended up, taking him home to do his home visits, and he absolutely loved OT. And because of that very first interaction gave me confidence that I, as an OT, could actually empower and really help somebody.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing that that's like your very first patient. And, if you look back, that's possibly was a massive confidence boost for you to help someone like that. And maybe not all OTs get that experience in their first day. So I think that was something that you really wanted to get out of the book, was to ensure that this book got into the hands of student OTs so they knew that power from day one. So we're really hoping to spread that message and really, like, at the OT show, you decided just to give this book away because you said you wanted as many people to get it as possible to understand the power of it.
And I was delighted that there were a lot of students there.
Yeah.
And a lot of students who are doing apprentice courses. So they're currently working as OTs, really OT assistants, but they're doing their apprentice course, and the book will just really empower them and inspire them, I hope. And I'm very lucky that 2 contributors to the book are actually lecturers in our local university. So they are, from day one, they're going to be talking about the power of OT. So the first day these students arrive in college, they're going to be talking about the power of OT. And I hope that over time will just give them that little bit more courage to get out there.
Yeah. Another class thing from the 18 contributors is they all come from such different backgrounds. They're all doing, OT in so many, many different ways. I think it just opens up for anybody coming new into the profession. They can go anywhere with this.
One of the OTs talks about a portfolio career.
Uh-huh.
She has a portfolio. So she works a bit in private. She works a bit in NHS, social services. She has a portfolio career. So my message would be to OTs that even if you are in an NHS job or you are in social services or you can actually diversify out and do something different part-time and just dip your toe into that and see, maybe I'll try that, maybe I'll try that, because that's how you find your passion. That's how you find your passion. But that's how you find your passion, is to dip your toe into different things and then actually discover what really makes you tick.
Yeah. I think the book does that. And so, like, there's ways in the book that I had never thought of OT. So in Seat Matters, an OT to me is prescribing equipment, doing assessments. But then when you read this, it just goes down so many different paths. What was the strangest thing that you have seen an OT do, perhaps in the book or otherwise?
Well, lots of things, but the one that I talked about at the OT show was the chicken run.
Uh-huh.
You'll see it in one of the chapters in the book is called the chicken run. And it was, Kate was one of the OTs that went out to see a patient who had had a catastrophic injury. And she had been in hospital for 6 months while overall during COVID. And she had been isolated at that time. And she went to assess her and she pulled the chair up to the bed and she said to her, "Well, what do you want?" And the lady just started to cry. So Kate got up and she pulled the curtain round and she approached her again and she says, "How can I help? What can I do for you?" And she says, "You're the first person in 6 months to ask me that question." And you know what her goal was? To be able to look after her chickens. She rescued chickens. She brought on these chickens that had no feathers, that were neglected, and she brought them back to life. And she now was a wheelchair user. She lived in a house where the garden was 3 steps down, and Kate had to figure out a way of getting an automatic coop opener to get a voice activated thing so that the lady could do cluck, 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 and the wee chickens would come in. And the lady said afterwards, when she got this in place and she got discharged, she says, "I don't think I would have wanted to leave hospital if I hadn't have had that." For she says, "I sit and I stroke my chickens." And she says, "When I'm stroking them, I feel joy coming back to my life," she said, "and my blood pressure dropping." And like, if that isn't as power of OT, I don't know what is. And as Kate says in the book, I never thought I would have to know about an automatic coop opener when I became an OT, but you just don't know where OT takes you. And the most important thing is to ask the patient, what do they want? Don't go in there and presume that you know what the patient needs. And that's very much evident in the whole book. The girl, Sarah Solomon, who looks after the MND patients, she says, like, sometimes people go in and say, "Oh, you'll need a wheelchair, you'll need a horse, you'll need a bed." She says, "I never do that. I just go in and I'll say, what is important to you?" And one man said all he wanted to do was to be able to smoke his own cigarette, hold his own cigarette. He didn't care about everything else. And until she looked after that one thing that he needed, she wasn't going to get his cooperation with everything else. Because, as I said yesterday, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And that's really what OT is about. You need to show the patient that you care about them.
Yeah, it was a recurrent theme through the whole book, really, that people were just asking, "What do you want?" And that was the big impactful thing for the patient.
Yeah.
The whole book was designed in-house here. And we'll give a shout out to Gary who done all the designing of the book. Can you explain the front cover? Where did that come from, the hand and the hearts?
Well, when I was doing research for the book, I obviously read a lot of stuff about, what people thought about OT and everything. And I came across a lot of really good quotes. And one of the quotes that I came across that I really liked most was from a pioneer OT in America. And her quote is here in the book at the very start. And the quote says, "It's not enough to give a patient something to do with their hands. You must reach for the heart as well as the hands. It's the heart that really does the healing." So that's why at the front of the book, I have the hands, because we reach for people. The hands are the activity to do meaningful activity, which is what OT is. But in the hands, you've got the heart, because if you don't have a heart for the patient, you can't really help them. And even Kate says in the book, when she was training to be an OT, she was told, don't get emotionally involved. And she said, there's I can't look after my patient if I don't get emotionally involved. Now, that doesn't mean you take all your troubles home. You have to learn, especially as a young OT, to leave your troubles at work. But at the same time, Kate says, you really need to get emotionally involved with somebody a little bit in order to understand where they're coming from and feel empathy for them. So that's what the book is. It's the hands with the heart. And that's where it came from.
Yeah, it's so obvious, in the work that we do every day at Seeking Matters, is the people that are emotionally involved are the most successful. They're the ones that are providing more care to anybody else. They're helping their patients better. They're not looking at it as a physical thing. They really are connected to the person. And, we see the people in hospitals that are making massive changes within the healthcare system. It's all coming from a servant's heart, as we talk about.
Yeah.
It's not coming from trying to save money or make money or fix something. It's really, really caring for the people that they're looking after.
And what I'm very proud of in Seeking Matters is that because this is a clinical company and because it was started for me, an OT, and initially I started the company because I could see a need to have a better chair for somebody to sit in, right? So always the company started with that clinical need. It was putting the patient first. And that culture has gone through, and I'm very, very proud of the people that work at Seeking Matters in all aspects, and especially the people out on the road who are doing the assessments, who are the reps or the salespeople, as people call them. They're not salespeople. They've been trained by us here and they have the heart. And when they go out, it's to meet the needs of the patient and the caregiver. And I'm very, very proud of that has stayed with the company. And because we are, a family company as well, and because it's based on the OT principles, we always put the person first. And I'm very proud of everybody at Seeking Matters that they still continue to do that.
Yeah. Well, one of the driving things is the servant's heart. It's something that we have. And something we talked about even at the show yesterday as a team. And it is very, very evident. So so I love that for the front cover of the book.
Yeah.
Ties everything together. We're going to meet some of the contributors to the book.
Yeah.
The first one is your very own OT, the first OT that ever treated you. Can you tell us a wee bit about her and why we want to interview her and have her here?
Well, I'm delighted. I'm looking forward to interviewing Karen again. I interviewed her for the book and she has a fabulous story. But Karen is a hand therapist and she's the first and only OT that has ever treated me. And I broke my wrist 2 years ago, just 2 days before the OT show. I was about to go to Birmingham to present and I fell and I broke my wrist. And don't ask me how I fell, but I fell and broke my wrist. And I went to see Karen. I was recommended by Olivia, who's my daughter-in-law, who's also an OT, and she says, you really need to go to see Karen. So I went to see Karen, and the first thing she did was she got a nice warm blanket that she had heated. She wrapped my wrist in the blanket, and she put it on the table, and she says, how do you feel? What's going on? What have you to do? And I said, oh, Karen, I have to go to the OT show. I can't drive a car. I can't look after the grandchildren. And I started to tell her all these things. And this was only a temporary. But she first of all just wrapped the hand up and she just asked about me and how I felt. And she understood that even though this was a temporary and a minor compared to what people have to put up with, she knew that it impacted me. And just for that period of time, I'd lost my confidence. I was scared of falling. It was November and it was icy and I was scared of falling. And it just showed me the power of OT. So when I went to write the book, I thought I have to include Karen in it because she's the only OT that ever treated me, but she treated me as a person, not as a wrist injury.
Yeah. And it shows the enthusiasm you had. You ended up going to the OT show and speaking with your arm in cast. And
I got Louise to come with me. I had to get help to cases and stuff.
Not going to let you away with not telling us how you broke your arm. You're going to have to tell us how you broke your arm.
Well, I told everybody at the start, my brothers and sisters, that I stepped on a toy with wheels because it was a Tuesday and it was the day that I look after the grandchildren. And I told them I stepped on a toy with wheels and they just accepted that. But actually, my two grandsons, John and James, they were 6 and 7 at the time. They had a hoverboard, and I says, Granny could go on a hoverboard. So I stepped on the hoverboard, one hand, and got the two children, one on every side of me to hold me up. And then off I went. I fell and broke the wrist. So that was the story.
Super Granny.
Super Granny.
Hoverboard OT.
Uh-huh.
So, we're looking forward to meeting Karen then. Karen's on the next episode. She was the first contributor. We're going to try and get everybody here to share their story. We also want to hear from other OTs. You know, there's so much power out there that we want to hear from others. And if anybody wants to get a copy of the book, they can get it at martinatierney.com, or they can get it through Seating Matters as well, so seatingmatters.com. So looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, and I'm excited about getting the word out there and to tell everybody about the power of OT.
Great. Thank you.